All right, I know some of you guys out there are already thinking it, so let's just get this out of the way. Yes, this machine is capable of way more than we are. This is a classic case of excellent tooling and a lack of experience. Although we were super excited when we found this Shopsmith, we totally stumbled on it. If you haven't seen the video, give it a watch. We'll link to it. We actually were buying a concrete mixer, not even kidding, for 45 bucks or something on Craigslist. And it just so happens that the gentleman who had that, not even kidding, has already done what Alyssa and I are doing, except he did it about 40 years ago. Him and his wife bought land when they were young, starting a family. And while they were raising the kids, they lived in the garage. Does this sound familiar? But they only had an outhouse. So technically, Alyssa and I are already ahead of where they were. Anyway, over the course of the children's lives, they never moved out of the garage. And the kids went to school, they ended up going off to college. After the kids were gone, this gentleman and his wife built their house together. They built an art studio, a beautiful lawn, and they had, wait for it, a wood-fired cedar hot tub. Not even kidding. It's so funny. Anyway, by some, we'll just say good fortune, but maybe there was something in the universe that made us meet this gentleman, because he was selling his house. He was in his 80s and all of his kids had moved away, and he wanted to be closer to his kids. His wife had unfortunately passed away and he had no reason to stay where he was. He had all the tools that we need because he did this exact same thing. One of those things was this Shopsmith. This gentleman was one of those people that took really good care of his tools. So he had tools from his great grandpa, and we inherited those. We did buy them, but he was gracious enough to let us buy all this stuff from him. I think it was an emotional process more than it was a transaction. I don't think this stuff really had a lot of monetary value to him. It was purely sentimental because him and his wife spent time on these machines building the cabinets and the flooring and the trim and the stairs in their house. And I think there was a part of the reality that Alyssa and I are doing the same thing that made him willing to sell this stuff to us all at one time. Not only did he have the Shopsmith, but he was one of those guys that had all the bells and whistles. So this machine has so many accessories that I literally can't even figure out what some of them are. I have taken a few days and gone through the machine and tried to figure out what's what. We've gone through the manual, which he had. It's very well marked, and kind of sorted out what parts belong to what machines. And we ended up finding a few pieces that were missing or were damaged. Somehow, either in our possession or prior to that, this fence rail for the table saw got bent. You can see that this guy gets smunched here. It's kind of a weak spot right there. There's a set of extension tables that go to this. They're right there. And what they do is allow this table to become over 8 feet wide. There are 5-foot tubes that go this direction and 3-foot tubes that go this direction. And in the end, this can become a panel saw, although it doesn't really have an outfeed or an infeed table, but you get the idea. Anyway, this is bent. The good news is Shopsmith still has all the parts for this machine, and we were able to order a replacement rail. We also found a few knobs and things that I thought were missing, like this little knob right here that's kind of the adjustment for the height on the table saw. I actually think I found that, although it was missing at the time. I started finding things like this just kind of in boxes, but it doesn't seem to fit that spot. It seems to fit other spots, like over here, for example, on the drill press or whatever. Anyway, this has been a process of trying to find all the parts and make sure that we have everything to actually start working. We were super excited when we found this because we knew we needed pretty much all the tools. And we're not a wood shop. We're not a cabinet shop. We don't have all these tools. And a Shopsmith, I think, is going to be cumbersome to some degree if you're like a professional. You need a machine center for everything. And that's really the kryptonite, I guess, of this system, is that this one power head right here actually operates every single tool. So right now, there's a table saw blade on the arbor, and of course this table is for the table saw. But there are lots of other accessories. For example, here is a sanding disc. So this sanding disc is actually designed to replace this saw blade, and then you have a sanding table, and you can sand your material there. So this thing is like the Swiss Army knife of home wood shop type things. We definitely did very well on this purchase because a lot of these accessories are not included. I don't know what actually comes with the base system, but you can buy a lot of bells and whistles to go with it. And we just wanted as many bells and whistles as we could get. So there's a belt sander. That's gonna be awesome. We have the bandsaw that goes with it, but not just the bandsaw. There's actually a fence for the bandsaw, which is an accessory. And then there's actually the table extension that goes with this. And he also has a circle cutter accessory that hooks to the table extension so that you can cut perfect circles on the bandsaw. Again, that's just one of those little tiny things. It's probably $20 or something, and he had it. There's also a joiner, edger, and I'm not sure if we're gonna end up using that. We'll see. We'll have to kind of see how we end up doing joinery. A lot of that stuff we'll probably end up doing on the table saw. We'll have to just see how accurate that table saw is, and I guess how accurate we are. He had the dust collection. I'm not even kidding. When I saw this, I just jumped up and down because one of the kryptonites of building in your garage like we are is dust. I mean, wood shops are bad anyway, but because we're living here, dust could become a major issue. We like to be clean and tidy people, and we've done a really good job with a vacuum downstairs and a vacuum upstairs keeping our house clean. Even though we're working on it while living here, we haven't had the dust bunny dust problem. And hopefully we can get that thing tuned up and we can hook it to each one of these machine centers while we're using it and keep the dust down to a minimum. He purchased the thickness planer, and this is kind of an interesting device because it has a feed motor which is separate from the power head, so it's a little confusing from a traditional planer that just has one power button. Well, I guess that's even more confusing. It does only have one power button. When you push it, it turns on the feed motor and that power head at the same time. And so this thickness planer, we'll have to see how accurate it is, but it's a very expensive tool. I think it was over $1,000 to add this to the machine center. So hopefully it lives up to that price and is super accurate. He had the router table extension, which I've kind of looked over, and it seemed like these little legs right here, these little adjustment legs, those are actually an accessory that I think was made by a different company, and I was able to find it because the small table that goes in here that actually holds the router was missing. So we ordered that guy, and it's here already too. There is literally a pile of boxes down there that are just different accessories that he had for this tool, and it seems like he didn't even use them, so maybe this was a case of buy everything. I think he did buy this at a special, so maybe some of that stuff kind of came as a bundle. I think we're all guilty of that, buying one tool and they offer you 3 more, so you buy them all. What else? He had a very high quality fence. This is actually what's called a pro fence, and it's very adjustable and can be tuned to make sure that it's nice and square. Of course, we have our Dinosaur Craftsman table saw. That guy, it's finally done. The arbor bearing has died on it, and so it'll run for a couple minutes before it overheats, and then it's done. We did try to replace that. For the last 9 months, we've had an arbor bearing on back order, and apparently Sears is just their belly up or something, because I don't think it's coming. So we don't want to get rid of that because we put a bunch of money into tuning it up and replacing all the knobs, but it's history. But the good news is we've got the Shopsmith table saw now. It is going to be kind of annoying to use it because you have to set it up every time. You know, if you're using the bandsaw, then the table saw, you're just switching between machine centers. So the thing may be just to keep it super machine center centric while your workflow goes through. That way you're not bouncing between machines. He also had a bunch of push sticks and fence sticks and jigs. There's a crosscut sled to go with it, some fingerboards, the saw guard. We had a bunch of accessories. A really nice miter gauge. This is actually their pro miter gauge, and it actually has fine tuning adjustments built into it so that you can get it
super accurate, and it has adjustable stops. So if you're doing repetitive work between like 90 and 45, you can actually adjust the stops, I think, to make that super precise. And then it has kind of this interesting hold feature, which I found slightly barbaric. I've never seen that before, where you squeeze it and it holds the board, but we'll see if that's a really cool feature or not. Yes, this has a lathe, and this is the tool rest. We have a tailstock and the headstock and all the arbors and everything to do lathe work. So if we wanted to turn something, we could. I don't think we're going to do that for this project that we have coming up, but it's nice to have, and I don't know, there's something therapeutic about throwing wood chips. Along with all the tools that he had, he also had several chisels and gouges for the lathe. They're in a little bit of disrepair. They've got some corrosion and stuff on them. It's probably from us because this machine has been in storage for 2 years. I thought we had it protected from moisture, but you know what? There's a chance it got in there. So we may have to do some tuning up on these tools before they're gonna be in great condition. And this guy is the bowl turning kit. These tools are beautiful. I don't think that's something that we're gonna start right now, but there will be something magical when we turn our first bowl and then we're able to put fresh fruits and vegetables in it from the garden and the property. Aren't those things gorgeous? A guy just had them laying around. It doesn't look to me like he ever got around to turning a bowl, which is a total tragedy. And he did give us a few blanks that he got for bowls themselves. I've been working really hard to try to work through all of these accessories and stuff down here. Things are fairly well labeled, but it's still really intimidating because this machine is so sophisticated, yet ironically simple. And so I've just been going through it patiently, piece by piece, machine by machine, looking for anything that looks like it might be missing or broken or damaged, because we want to start working on our cabinet project. And you know, true story, I haven't even plugged this in yet. So maybe we should do that, because I'm trying to basically get this thing up and running so that we can start working. Let's see, so everything's disconnected from the arbor, and I can't see, oh I see, so there's an arrow here, and we're set to slow. I don't know, I was so obsessed with trying to find things that are broken and missing, I forgot to turn it on. Looks like it works, guys. That's good news, right? Of course, that doesn't mean that each of these machines works. Of course, the table saw just goes on the headstock. So if the headstock works, the table saw works. But some of these other machines, we need to make sure that they're up and running. I don't think we're really gonna need a lot of machines for this first project, which is gonna be our laundry cabinets. But we do need to make sure that the machines that we're using are working well. There actually are really detailed instructions for tuning the headstock, the bars that this thing runs on, the fence, everything can be tuned. So we need to go through and spend some time tuning everything and make sure that everything's square and the way it should be. I think one of the challenges that we're going to have is, of course, having space for everything. We do have a few other tools in here that we don't really need to have in here all the time, so we might set those outside while we're working. But this accessory stand, I can tell, is going to be super helpful. And this gentleman actually built a router stand. So that router doesn't go on there. It actually goes on this headstock and mounts here, and you actually use it on this main unit, but that table is just there for storage. But at least it rolls around. This accessory stand rolls around, and the dust collection system is pretty mobile. So I think once we get the main machine center all set up, I don't think that we're gonna have to move it too much.
I don't know. We'll have to kind of figure this system out. But there's so many other accessories that this is going to take a while to get a system so that it's fairly well organized. Maybe organizing it by machine center makes the most sense. Like these are actually a dust collection fence system for the router table, but they're really awkward looking parts. So I'm not really sure how to store those. But obviously we don't want to bend them or damage them because, well, they look kind of expensive to replace. Along with these beautiful machines, this gentleman also had a lot of these very important accessories. So we'll have to kind of figure out how all this stuff works. This is a dado blade kit, which we are going to be using some dado joinery on the cabinets. So we'll have to kind of look closer at this. I've done a little research on this unit, and I know that Freud actually makes a newer dial of dado, and this is not one of those, which, it's a dado kit. We're not going to get mad. I think these probably are maybe $70 to $100. I'm not really sure. So we're thankful to have one. We'll kind of play with it and see how the shimming and all that stuff treats us. If it gets to be super annoying and we have a lot of dados to do, we might invest in the newer piece. This is a finger joining bit for the router. Not sure we're going to do a lot of finger joining initially, but if we wanted to join some of the hardwoods or something like that down the road for face frames or something, or trim, that's really nice to have. There's so many more than these two. These are just a couple of the really nice ones, but there's so many tools that go with the Shopsmith that I think are going to really help us build the things that we want to build.
Yeah. Well, look at that. That's a lot beefier. That's kind of funny, guys. So we ordered this replacement rail, and look how much beefier it is than the original. You can see how thin some of these are, and I'm guessing this isn't the first time somebody's bent one of these. But I'm a little bit worried that this is a little different. That looks really similar. But they've added kind of a T up here. I wonder if that's maybe just to strengthen that area. Well, I guess it's time to find out if it fits.
So I found out from reading some of the paperwork kind of what brand might have been in here for a router plate, and I dug it up on Google, and I'll be darned, I found the company and I found the plate. And let's see, they were supposed to include some more of the little adjuster things, but it looks like maybe I didn't order them or something. And then I think these little guys go in here for different clearance, different clearances on different bits. See if this fits there. No. I figured it out. All right, this goes like that. There we go. And then these are inserts for the different clearances on different bits. And let's see, there's probably an orientation. Well, we'll get that figured out. Anyway, those go in there. So now we have a complete router table. I don't know if we have a router that's set up for this yet, but we'll have to get one of those sorted out. We have an attachment that's a router fence that comes in here. It provides safety with a fence and a guard for your eyes, and then also has dust collection built into it. That's quite a contraption.
Oh, I bought the handle for this, and looks like all I got was the handle. So we don't have whatever the bolt is that goes in there that makes this easy to crank. It kind of looks like it might be a shoulder bolt, because you want to be able to crank on this, but you don't want the bolt to come loose. So I might be able to find a 1/4-20 or something that fits that maybe. Let's see, that looks, no, too big. Too big. Close, but not good enough.
seems like this isn't the right thing. Maybe we need to order the right part. I don't know. Yeah. So I ordered a 174, but we don't have 173 handle shaft. So guess we'll order a handle shaft. Well, it's clear that we have the tooling to do the job. So we're about to start our very first cabinet project. But I have a hunch that these tools will be with us through the majority, hopefully all, of this house build, which is going to take us years. And I'm sure some of our very first projects together are going to be really frustrating, but maybe over time we'll learn to master these tools and make beautiful things with them. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, when Alyssa and I get really old, some young couple will come to us to buy a concrete mixer, and they'll see this Shopsmith and they'll get all kinds of excited, and we'll be happy to pass it on to the next generation.